Well, new fallout from the decision to extend nuclear talks with Iran for another 7 months. Secretary of State John Kerry defending it as the best way forward, saying, quote, "We would be fools to walk away." But Iran's supreme leader denouncing the extension, saying that it shows that the West failed to bring his country to its knees. Joining us now, Mark Dubowitz, Executive Director at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. So is there something to what the supreme leader in Iran said, or is that just more talk from them?
Well, I think the Supreme Leader is right. I mean, I think that the West has been finding ways to try and accommodate his red lines. He has only demonstrated nuclear intransigence, and he has demanded more and more flexibility from us. And we have provided more flexibility, more concessions, and have moved away from our fundamental negotiating positions over the past 12 to 18 months. So he's staying firm.
Well, we sure did. And John Kerry, in basically justifying that delay of 7 months, has said that Iran held up its end of the bargain. Doesn't really seem like it did. What do you think about that?
That's completely wrong. Iran has been cheating on its obligations. It's been stonewalling the International Atomic Energy Agency and denying IAEA requests for information on Iran's weaponization activities. These are the years and years of activities Iran has undertaken to build a nuclear warhead, and they refuse to come clean. So if that's not a violation of their obligations, I don't know what is.
All right, then why are we rewarding that kind of double dealing?
Well, because the administration continues to believe that they can incentivize Iran to come to a compromise by providing more and more sanctions relief, by diminishing Western economic leverage. They can somehow persuade the Iranians to come to a good deal. Unfortunately, what we know from Iranian history is the only thing that's going to get the supreme leader to bend is more and more pressure. It's the only thing that gets the Iranians to take us seriously, and we're moving in the other direction.
Well, the Wall Street Journal puts it this way in an editorial from Brett Stevens, so let me read a part of it to you. He's talking about the United States here. He says, quote, "The real problem is cowardice. As a matter of politics, it could not acknowledge what privately it believes, that a nuclear Iran is undesirable, but probably inevitable and hardly catastrophic." So is the United States accepting a nuclear Iran in your view?
Look, I think the United States is trying to negotiate a deal that will constrain Iran's nuclear weapons breakout. I mean, I think the negotiators are sincere about this, but I think the problem is that they fundamentally stepped away from their insistence that Iran dismantle its military nuclear program. We've gone from dismantle and the requirement to disclose past weaponization activities to all of these new technical ideas about disconnecting centrifuges and deferring questions and providing more economic incentive. We fundamentally moved away from these tough negotiating positions, and the Iranians have our number. And now they're playing for time with another 7 months and tens of billions of dollars in more direct and indirect economic relief.
Well, Secretary of State John Kerry, of course, has been the one negotiating this, but now that Hagel will be out, or that he's a lame duck until a new one is brought in, how does that factor into all this?
Look, I think it's going to be very important that the new Secretary of Defense be somebody who's not only respected in Washington by Republicans and Democrats, but is also feared by the Supreme Leader. We've got to reestablish the credibility of our military threat. The Iranians are only going to move if they believe that they're going to face a tidal wave of sanctions and the potential for the United States to use military force to obliterate their nuclear facilities. We don't have to use military force. We just need to have the credible threat of military force to force the Supreme Leader away from his position of nuclear intransigence.
Mark, you know, there are some here in the United States who say that the United States can contain a nuclear Iran, that we can allow them to become a nuclear nation, but rather we can contain them like the United States did with Russia. Do you agree with that? Is that possible? Is that a good idea?
Fundamentally disagree with that. The problem is that if Iran acquires nuclear weapons capability, the Saudis, the Turks, the Egyptians, the Algerians have already made it clear in a variety of ways that they too will also move towards threshold capability. You'll have 5 nuclear-armed Middle Eastern states all on a hair trigger, and we could see a nuclear catastrophe, whether by intention or by accident. I think the president's going to have a hard time dealing with that one from behind.
Boy, then a domino effect. Mark Dubowitz from the Foundation for Defense for Democracies, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again.
Thanks for having me.